Enrique Grimaldo to keep that one going. We saw a really good game from him earlier, and he's going to want to keep that momentum as he comes into this almost mirror. So let's head into the game and see how it plays out. Both trainers very experienced with their teams, especially Leonardo, and the leads could be really important here.
Well, for leads on Leonardo's side, we are going to see the Venusaur and the Charizard, and it looks like I'm seeing double because Enrique's got that Charizard and Venusaur also.
Well, if double battles existed when Red and Blue came out, I imagine this is a lead matchup that we would have seen a whole lot. It's not the case. They didn't exist back then, but two Pokemon that have been around for quite some time. You know, we're celebrating 25 years this year, and both the trainers are really throwing it back all 25 years as well. So these leads really going to struggle to carve out huge advantages against each other, and I think switches are incoming, which, yes, we are already seeing as Enrique pivots already away from his Venusaur, saving that for later and getting a nice safe Incineroar in something a lot more modern than the Charizard and Venusaur.
I think that's a really good heads-up play from Enrique, depending what Leonardo decides to do with this first turn, because that Venusaur was a lot more susceptible to any of the attacks that would have been coming out from this Charizard that is Gigantamaxing here. Could have gone for a Max Airstream. Venusaur does not like those. And as well as the G-Max Wildfire, that's not something that Venusaur would take very easily either. Enrique continuing to play it safe here as his Charizard does go for the Protect. And it was a Max Airstream coming out from Leonardo's Charizard, and that's going right into the Incineroar. So good switch from Enrique.
I think the Max Airstream and going for it turn one really important here because it actually just gives Leonardo's Charizard and Venusaur, that speed advantage, and the Venusaur's going to want a little help on the speed. It doesn't have the chlorophyll going already. It's not going to be the fastest thing on the field, but Venusaur Sleep Powder, into the Charizard Protect as well. So Incineroar gets in, takes a good chunk of damage, but I like Leonardo's play there. In a mirror, you do want to throw out something that gives you an advantage. The Max Airstream would have given him the speed advantage, and knowing about the potential Incineroar on the Charizard there, the Wildfire wasn't going to get the residual damage that it wanted. So holding on to that a little bit, quite wise. I do think that play is smart from Leonardo, and it means his Charizard is just the fastest Charizard on the field right now, which may force Enrique's hand into making certain plays to try and keep up with it. If Leonardo can read into that, things could get a little bit nasty, and I think this is one of the plays that's being forced, maybe forcing Enrique to Gigantamax his own Charizard, saying, you know what, you can't just sit on the field in regular form. You gotta go big. You gotta at least try and match me, and that's what he's going to be doing in this turn, and maybe force him into Max Airstreams of his own.
Well, I think what's really important about the switch that Enrique made into the Incineroar is what we're going to see right now, that Incineroar does pressure that fake out, which means that when Enrique goes for something like the G-Max Wildfire or the Max Airstream, it is going to be able to hit that Venusaur with no repercussion. But it is another Max Airstream coming out from Leonardo's Charizard, so that speed is going to get greater and greater. But here comes the G-Max Wildfire, and that is exactly what Enrique ordered in order to take out this Venusaur and also get that residual damage going. It's not going to affect the Charizard, but it might affect what's coming in next.
Yeah, it's going to be important to try and get that down, but the speed is really getting away from Enrique here. Leonardo definitely trying to run away with this game and put down those speed boosts so early on. I mean, it's the last turn of Gigantamax for Leonardo's Charizard. May want to try and weave in one of those Max Wildfires for something like the incoming Venusaur, but just the threat of this super fast Charizard definitely sort of forces Enrique to think a little bit and throw the Groudon out instead of that Venusaur. Oh, the Groudon coming in on Leonardo's side. So, that I think is just saying, you know what, I'm just going to go for you with my Charizard. And at the end of the day, that solar power means the Incineroar is going to get knocked out. This Venusaur switching looking really dangerous. I think either switching could be dangerous here for Enrique.
I agree with that. I think that whatever switch you decide to do, that Pokemon is going to be taking a lot of damage, and that's just not momentum that Enrique can afford to give up right now. So with Leonardo having those speed boosts, yes, okay, we can pivot out the Incineroar, we can bring back in the Venusaur, but is that really going to put Enrique into the position that he needs to be? We will see a Max Guard as well to couple up with that pivot. And yeah, that Venusaur is switching right into a Max Airstream.
The Venusaurs have both gone down without doing very much at all. And the fact that there's a Groudon and a Charizard on both other sides of the field, maybe the Venusaur needed to stay at home and celebrate while watching Charizard doing very, very well. The Groudon also got the benefit of that Airstream speed boost as well, so that Groudon's going to be able to cause some problems. And, yes, there's no G-Max Wildfire residual damage. It's something we rarely see through all 3 turns. If a Charizard or a Venusaur's on the field, we do get that damage down, but this Groudon going to be fast. This Groudon's going to be putting down, nice quick rock slides. Yes, it's going to have its damage reduced a little bit by this Incineroar. The Intimidate coming through once again. But the Charizard is just so fast on Leonardo's side of the field now. 3 max Airstream boosts. Even if something got set up a little bit with some Chlorophyll or, there's not enough time now for Enrique's Charizard to try and match it with max Airstreams of its own. So I think if Leonardo plays this turn safely, just gets past that potential fake out and follow-up attack from, Incineroar and Charizard into the Groudon, or even the Charizard, now it's not Dynamax or Gigantamax, it could be Leonardo's game to just push through at the end there.
But see, Enrique was thinking about a couple turns ahead, recognizing, okay, Groudon is the final Pokemon that I have brought to this first game. How can I position that Groudon so that it can take the win? We'll see Leonardo's Charizard go for the Protect here, and Groudon also going for a Protect, so we aren't going to be able to see too much of anything happen here, as that G-Max Wildfire does connect with the Groudon, going to bring it to about half health. But I think this is the important part, is that, Groudon can still heal up some HP using that Citrus Berry, and this Parting Shot is not going to work because of the double Protect from Leonardo.
Leonardo respected the fake out play, just accepted, you know what, that's fine. I'm going to be able to take that damage. The Groudon getting its berry really, really good there. It comes out that turn really nice and healthy going into the last few turns of the game. And you mentioned Enrique holding on to his Groudon at the end of the game. Don't forget, his Groudon's not going to have a max Airstream boost, and the longer Leonardo can keep this super fast pairing on the field of Charizard and Groudon, that has been boosted up by the max Airstream, it just gets harder and harder to work through the game. So Enrique needs to find something in this turn, I think, to swing things back in its favor, because otherwise, it's going to get dangerous. Of course, the Groudon is fast on Leonardo's side. It's not going to be as offensive, and that's something Enrique, I think, is very concerned about. Saying you can have the speed, but I am going to have to deal with your offensive threats.
Good pivot coming out from Enrique here, just protecting Charizard and bringing in his own Groudon as the Heat Wave comes out from Leonardo's Charizard. It misses Groudon, and we will at least see the Rock Slide connect. So Groudon taking that on the chin. It's going to brush that off pretty well.
Yeah, Groudon not too worried about Rock Slide. Not a Pokemon that is really, really scared of it. The Groudon, of course, taking a good amount of damage from the G-Max Wildfire. But that's going to be it for that so far. This Incineroar just has to come back in to keep the Groudon on Leonardo's side completely in check. Really has to be careful of that. But the Charizard on Leonardo's side is still really, really fast and can still put down really large amounts of damage. So that's going to be something to be thinking about. It has access to make sure that it can hit, a lot of things pretty hard. And even something like that, Incineroar coming in is going to eat a lot of damage depending on how Leonardo plays out this turn. So in comes Incineroar, saving that very low Charizard in the back, but keeps the Groudon in check.
Intimidate drop will be able to lower Leonardo's Groudon's attack, but Blast Burn here right onto the Groudon is going to be enough to knock it out. So the damage that Enrique was relying upon with that Groudon has been removed from the field, and now Incineroar on the switch-in is going to have to take this Rock Slide, and Enrique has such a low HP Charizard waiting in the back here. I think Leonardo takes this.
See you later, Groudon. That Blast Burn way too much with the Sun in play, the Solar Power in play, all the good stuff going on for the Charizard on Leonardo's side. And it's so fast, you just can't stop it. Don't forget, Leonardo still has one more Pokemon in the back. Now all this Groudon needs to do, get through this turn. Yeah, the Groudon's been caught by Intimidates. That is really, really annoying. But the Groudon doesn't really have that much work to do anymore. The Groudon's just got to deal with his Charizard, deal with the Incineroar, land a Rock Slide, and it can afford to just protect for a turn. There's nothing stopping it from doing that on the board right now, so just taking this turn to protect up. The Charizard on Leonardo's side, you know, does have to be respectful potentially of the Fake Out as well, but there's the Groudon protecting. Charizard not, so Charizard maybe trying to just weave in some big damage somewhere. Oh, it has to charge from the Boss Burn, my apologies.
Yeah, so recharge there, really safe play from Leonardo just to make sure that, you know, a Fake Out could have been coming in, but here's the Heat Wave. Charizard goes down. Leonardo still has one more Pokemon that Enrique is going to have to deal with, but that Groudon still has an Airstream boost. It has not left the field.
The Groudon's still got the Airstream boost. It's really got super low attack stats now, but it doesn't have any real health bars to try and chew through, right? As long as you land a Rock Slide on the Charizard, you'll be good. And to make it even easier, Leonardo's held onto his Incineroar for the whole game, playing it really defensively, and now just has access to potential Fake Out. Say, all right, I'll just Fake Out something on this turn and deal with the other Pokemon, and I'll deal with the last one on the next turn. So it's going to be a tough old struggle, I think, for Enrique to get back into this game, as Groudon has sat and really done well over the course of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. We will see the Protect. Incineroar does go for the Fake Out, reads it right, though, onto the Incineroar, and Groudon just using that classic spread move of Rock Slide, and will be able to hit the Incineroar, knocking it out. Now Charizard, unfortunately, with 11 HP and a Dream, is probably going to have to look towards the next game.
Yeah, this is not Enrique's Charizard's game, but it was a good game for the Charizard over on Leonardo's side of the field. I mean, setting up those Airstream boosts, causing so many problems with those Airstream damage amounts, and just the speed boost as well means Enrique having to throw in the towel on this one. So Leonardo taking a 1-0 lead. They led exactly the same, but from there, you know, Leonardo just really went for it with those max Airstreams, putting himself in a very offensive position by having the speed advantage, even getting one down onto the Groudon, which is something very, very impactful as the game rumbles on. And Enrique just wasn't quite able to get back in there. Managed to weave in a couple knockouts. That must have been nice for him, but in the end, you know, Groudon, Incineroar were just able to wrap up the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that Enrique really struggled with, was just the position that Leonardo put him in that turn one specifically. Enrique had to take the time to actually transition, pivot, make sure that the right Pokemon were in at the right time, didn't want to get rid of that Venusaur or give it up too early. And that just left him in a position where he wasn't really able to push as much damage forward as he needed to. But let's see what adjustments Enrique can make going into this game number 2, where Leonardo does have a game 1 start, as we just take a look at what is going to happen with the rest of this series.
Neither of the Venusaur were particularly impactful in game number 1, so I'll be interested to see if either trainer decides to leave them at home. Leonardo not going with that one, but Enrique not bringing it in the lead, at least. We can't confirm if it's in the back or not, but it's definitely not in the lead, which I do like a little bit more.
I like this Grimmsnarl start because in Enrique's first match of the day, Grimmsnarl played a pretty pivotal role when it came to setting up those screens, making sure that their Pokemon were going to be really, really safe behind the Reflect and the Light screen. And we also saw something that was really, really interesting, which was that scary face. Leonardo doesn't know that is on Enrique's Grimmsnarl. So we'll have to see whether or not that comes into play, but that could really help in reducing the amount of speed control that Leonardo was able to get in that first game.
Let's see if that's going to be what the Grimmsnarl looks to do. I think setting up something like that really could have a big impact in the course of this game. And I like that Enrique's actually going for the Gigantamax nice and early. You know, held that a turn last game and saw what Leonardo could do with the turn 1 Gigantamax, and just saying, you know what, nah, I'm not going to let you do that on your own. I'm going to have a go at it myself as well. And could put himself in a very quick Pokemon advantage. That Venusaur's on the field. That Venusaur's looking threatened. And hasn't been switching out either.
Well, Protect comes out first from Leonardo's Charizard, and Grimmsnarl is going to be able to use its scary face. It is going to drop the speed of that Venusaur by 2. And that means that Charizard, following up with his G-Max Wildfire, if that Venusaur survives, it's not going to be able to do a whole lot for the next turn. And it's going to at least be able to hang on with its Focus Sash, but the chip. Oh, and Charizard avoids the sleep powder. No!
It's so much. Relying on that Venusaur to hang on and fire back with the sleep powder was all Leonardo wanted from that turn. Revealing the focus sash, saying, yep, I got a focus sash, but I do get a chance to sleep powder you. Doesn't land it on the opposing Gigantamax Charizard, and that is kind of devastating for Leonardo. That was his whole plan in that turn, was put Charizard to sleep, and he doesn't get it. So Enrique commanding position once again. The Venusaur not fitting well into this matchup. This time for Leonardo, though. Of course, Leonardo did hold on to his Gigantamax. His Charizard could try and weave that in, but maybe Enrique learned a little bit from game number 1 and is able to bounce back a little bit differently and set up some max airstreams of his own. So really good opening turn from Enrique. I really like that one. You know, the Scary Face respecting the potential Groudon switch in there. You know, Groudon switching in to get the Chlorophyll going, and then trying to land that sleep powder, using the Prankster Scary Face to bring Venusaur back down to where it needed to be, would have worked out the same way as well. So really nicely done there from Enrique. Very heads up play, and the Charizard just protecting was maybe a little bit overly cautious from Leonardo. That said, it's paired with the Groudon now. It does have access to solar power and a huge amount of damage. Enrique's does too, though, and that's something that I think both trainers are very well aware of.
I also really like this play that Enrique is making, which is just going to go ahead and set up his screen. But Leonardo goes ahead and, well, he may have been able to set up the sun with the Groudon, is going to switch it out in favor of the Incineroar. And while the Intimidate's not going to do a whole lot, it does set Leonardo up later to potentially weave in a fake out of some kind, or just mitigate a little bit more of the damage as it's Leonardo's turn to Gigantamax, and that is exactly what Charizard is going to be doing here.
That's an awkward turn there for Leonardo, right? He needs and wants the sun to be able to do more damage with his Charizard. But to do that, he has to put Groudon in, say, there goes the drought ability, and then switch it out really quickly and get rid of it right away to try and save it for later, potentially get it a speed boost at some point as well. So a bit of a tough one, I think, and the speed boosts are important for Leonardo, as we can see by him landing the max airstream. Look how much damage that does. That is an insane amount of damage going down towards the opposing Charizard.
Yeah, almost makes you wish, if you were Enrique, that you actually used a light screen instead, because that solar power recoil is going to knock out that Charizard, and now Enrique is out of one of his biggest offensive threats, and Gigantamax.
Yeah, he didn't get the full use of the Gigantamax turns there, and that definitely gets awkward when you see the rest of the team available. I said at the top of the turn, I think the Groudon switch in is kind of awkward. I think it brings it in and says, hey, you know, I have to get out because I want to save myself for later, and that's fine. But it also played a bit of a mind game that Enrique definitely fell for. Enrique said, ooh, Groudon, that's got a Rock Slide. I better be able to throw up a Reflect here to keep that safe. Hey, that actually left the field, and that meant no light screen. That meant max airstream put it in range, so the solar power got it. No light screen. Just look how much this Charizard is doing now.
What a fantastic bait and switch by Leonardo, recognizing that Enrique was going to look at Groudon as a huge threat. This could have looked very different if Enrique's Grimmsnarl had used Light Screen instead, but it was Reflect that was chosen. And with that fake out coming out from Leonardo's Incineroar, and Grimmsnarl was just knocked out. There's no way to set up the Light Screen now. Groudon's in a big world of trouble.
Yeah, you got to respect that Charizard. You really do. I mean, it got the sun. And I think that, you know, Leonardo kind of made it clear that Charizard was the focal point, right? By bringing in the Groudon early, showing off that it was going to get the sun, the solar power, all the good stuff. You know, I think if you're Enrique, it's a tough decision. You do have to respect the Groudon, but you can't just ignore the Charizard on its Gigantamax turns either, and that has clearly been a bit of a problem in this game. I thought Enrique's start to this game was so good, so promising, and now Leonardo looks very much in the driving seat as he's just throwing down these G-Max wildfires, even into Protect, they're doing decent, sizable chunks of damage.
Yeah, I mean, setting up that chip damage is going to be the most important part. Incineroar just using a U-turn here, so let's see what Leonardo decides to rotate back in here, and it should be the Groudon. if I
It has
am
to be the
doing
Groudon.
process of elimination correctly. But yeah, Groudon's going to be coming back out onto the field, and while it might not have access to any boost this time around, I think that's okay. You've dodged the Intimidate, and that's the big one for Leonardo.
Yep, no Intimidate. You know, you're coming in, you're facing off another Groudon. Yeah, you've got the Reflect up in your face, which is going to be annoying. You are going to take the damage from the G-Max Wildfire, but so is the opposing Groudon. And you know, Leonardo's once again takes that Citrus Berry off the residual damage. Looks pretty okay at the end of the turn. You know, down on Enrique's side, yeah, it's taking quite a lot of damage. And there's no way right now to catch this Charizard.
Yeah, and I think Leonardo, you know, played this set so well. When it came down to, I'm just still thinking about the bait and switch, right? Putting Groudon on the field, setting up the sun, and being like, you know what? Groudon's going to be great for later. So Charizard here for Leonardo can go do some big damage with that Blast Burn onto Enrique's Groudon, taking it out of this fight. And now Enrique, all they have left is this Incineroar, as Groudon misses its Precipice Blade, so Incineroar does get a chance to weave in another attack. The Groudon still hangs on.
Yeah, the Groudon hangs on from all of that, you know, and a good amount of recoil going down on this Incineroar. But the Incineroar is being asked to do a whole lot of work here. The Incineroar is being asked to knock out a Charizard, a Groudon, and an opposing Incineroar. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And Enrique, you know, he has to try and do something here, wants to try and keep this match alive, but, you know, they're just so well played from Leonardo to come back from a tough old turn one, lost that Venusaur absolutely immediately, and to really make it even worse, Leonardo's throwing another Incineroar down, another Intimidate down on the imposing Incineroar, and even though it's not taking residual damage from something like the, you know, the G-Max Wildfire, because it's a fire type itself, don't know if these Snarls are going to be enough. I mean, there was a Snarl early on, and it didn't seem to slow down this Charizard enough at all. Maybe 2 is the magic number for Snarls.
Well, the harsh sunlight is gone. Good heads-up play by Leonardo to preserve that Groudon for later, if he wants to take advantage of the sun again. But with the fake out here and hopefully Charizard landing another attack. Oh my gosh, it's just a raw Hurricane! That's what's gonna seal the deal here. Leonardo knocking out Enrique's Incineroar and taking this series 2-0 to move forward in the winner's bracket. Holy cow, Adam.
That's how far ahead Leonardo was at the end of the game.